you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Man, the way that this camera thing works is not cool.
Yeah, you're live.
Okay. I'm hungry.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
You're like, yeah, you're live.
Did you like that?
Get it together.
Hey, guys. I just showed up. I'm ready to have lunch now.
I'm having pita chips.
Okay, well, let's not do that during this.
Okay. Let me put them out of reach. Because otherwise
You're fired.
Wow.
starving.
Hello,
I don't get fed here.
everyone. How's everyone doing? We got our stuff together this time and no glitches.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. What are you drinking?
Sparkling water.
Fun.
So,
All right. Well, Dave, are you good?
TUFF Talk 5.
Tough
Let's talk about you. Unbound Camp. What camps are next? All about camps.
Yeah. I just got back from Unbound Camp. I actually just finished recording a Grodio with Heather Jackson. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, so I just came back from
Wait, how does she feel about aero bars and gravel?
She's not happy. Taking away your advantage. Yeah, we talked about that. Pretty funny. Yeah, like the one person that actually really affects is her.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here to talk about camps in general, riding camps. I just came back from the Unbound Camp like we talked about. We are all leaving on Sunday for our TUFF Camp in Kansas with Flint Hills Gravel Ride. Yes, we'll be doing a lot of tough talking there, that's for sure. Yeah, Matt's joining us, so he's here again. We're going to talk a little bit about camps in general and why we know what we know in this space.
So Mr. Jury joined, who will be at camp this week.
JR. All right, go Dave.
I believe you look at the colors. This is on you.
Sorry, it's a long day. It's a long day.
Do your homework, lady.
Okay, welcome everyone. Again, I'm going to kick this off. We're going to do a little backstory on Freeman. And Matt, how many years have you been doing camps? Obviously, we know through CTS and your experience there. So tell us a little bit about that and why you are so qualified to run camps.
Yeah, for over 10 years with CTS. And I couldn't tell you how many more camps than camps. There were some years where it was like camps in the springtime, like 1 week, and then we'd have a week off, and then 1 week another camp, and then a week off. Yeah, so more camps than I can count.
And have they all been with CTS?
No.
I mean, I've done TUFF Camp. I did. I think I did a couple NICA camps.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of run the gamut, and we did the Talent ID camps, which for cyclocross for how many years? 3 years, I think.
3 years.
Yeah. So yeah. Dave and I were talking about, or we've talked about this recently. Like, I feel like any situation that could come up at a camp, we've pretty much dealt with it, you know. Or we've done so many camps that we've gotten to the point where like no situation is unsolvable, basically.
Yeah.
You know, like
You have put out all the fires.
basically, yeah, yeah. Or at least we are equipped to put out the fires.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have all the knowledge.
How we handle them better now. Like in the beginning, you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
The first couple of years of like, what do I do? I don't even know the next road we're turning on. So we have ways to kind of cheat the system now.
And how many times have you done Unbound, Matt?
I finished 5. I've entered 6, but I've been at every Unbound since 2014, so I haven't missed
That's right.
one. Yeah.
Keeping the streak alive.
Yeah. Yep. So
Started
I'm looking
6,
forward
finished
to
5.
being out in Kansas again in the Flint Hills next week
Nice.
for sure.
Yeah, I can't. That's kind of one of the reasons why we're talking about this, is just kind of the history that all of us have with the Unbound or DK experience, and then now we're all kind of going out because our friend Bobby, Discover Gravel, has these events that are going on in the Flint Hills. So we're excited to kind of partner up with them and bring the camps to the Flint Hills Gravel Ride, which is next week. And so I would say, between the three of us, we probably have close to 20 years of riding that event. Because I probably have another year than Matt, and I've quit one. So I think there's like 7 or 6. I don't know. But yeah, we went out at the same time when that all started. How many have you done, Amanda?
I've finished the 206 times, and I've finished XL once. So I've done 7 editions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that you did the 200 another. Was that last year?
Yeah, it was last
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Dang.
I
Yep.
know, right?
That was
I
the
said never
only year
again.
that you and I didn't ride. And we sat in the car, and when it was just pissing rain at that last aid station, that was the first time Matt and I looked at each other, and I'm like, I'm actually happy I'm not riding, because the whole week it's like you're there, you know the experiences, you're excited for everybody and to ride, and then you know, you're watching it all go down, and it was just, the weather got so nasty that I was like, that was the first time we looked at each other in the rental truck, and we're like, I'm so happy I'm not riding right now.
Yeah, I remember that. Because I'm like, because a year where I didn't ride,
Yeah.
the year that you guys did the 350,
Yeah.
and it was like, I was happy to be there and happy to not be riding.
Yeah.
But then last year, I remember thinking like, man, I kind of, I had a year off. Okay, I'm ready to do this again. And then once it started pouring, yeah, I was like.
So JR asked how many I won. I won 2, and then I got second for the 2 times after that as well. So
In the
4 podiums. Yes.
Yeah. And then second in 350.
Correct.
Matt and I were 9th and 10th one time, if anybody cares. We got some age group podiums, we're big time.
Street
I
cred.
age group podium the first 2 years we went.
Yeah, first 3 years.
That it was
it was kind of like expected, but after that, life got hard.
I was thinking about it leading up to today, and I don't know about you, but I kind of, after the first 2, I stopped training for it specifically. Like the first 2 years, I specifically trained for Unbound for the 200, and then I just stopped training for it. And I think that was a bad idea. I still want to go and experience it and race and do well. But I was, I had other goals, shorter events and stuff like that. So I didn't train specifically for Unbound. And plus you finished 2, did 12 hours the first year and a little longer the next was the money year, right? You kind of take it. I kind of started taking it for granted a little bit.
That's true.
But
you're like, no, I got this.
I'm excited for Bobby's race. Yeah, it's kind of that way. I'm excited for Bobby's race because I think, not 200 miles out there and being able to, ride at more of a shorter, like 100-mile pace or 85-mile pace or whatever. To me, it just sounds like really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is we never go to that area to really enjoy one of the 80 or 100 mile, other than Mid-South. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of, because we always go out and do pre-rides for the events, but you never ride that long.
Yeah. And I think that's why the camps are fun and a good opportunity to do it when it's less stressful, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this is kind of like the thing that we should get into when we ask these questions too, is like, what are kind of the strategies for camp? And we can talk about some of the stuff that Amanda and them did with the Unbound camp and the Lifetime crew this week. And then kind of more like, you know, these things are fun for adults for sure, but it's also like, I think from all of our experience, because we all have worked camps, like for all the years that Matt and I have done with CTS, you know, like because we both probably worked 10 years of camps and then outside of that too. And we've done our own thing with the TUFF Camps the past year. Um, it's one of those things where, like, I want people to come and have fun, but there's also like, there's a mindset or things that they should kind of go to accomplish where it's like, if that just means miles or meeting new people and getting out of your normal area. And so I think it's kind of fun to talk about those things because everybody always has different goals. And I think the thing with doing CTS camps for so many years, like we see frequent flyers, and the reason they come back is because they know they're going to like make new friends and get miles, and it's more motivating than just riding in their general area.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the goals thing is a big part of it. Like everybody goes there with different objectives in a camp, and with the Unbound one this past week, I mean, that's the first question you ask everyone. You're like, which one are you doing? You're doing the 50, the 100, the 200 XL. Like everybody has this thing that they're going to challenge themselves with later in the year. And you kind of use camp as an opportunity to test things out. Nutrition, hydration, see how the legs feel. For a lot of people that ended up riding the 100 on Saturday, it's where all of the pain is on your body, like your hands, your tricep muscles, the things that you're not paying attention to in training right now that you're like, oh, that's going to be a weak spot come June or whenever the big event is, you know. So I think it's also a good chance to do that. And at this Unbound camp, you know, there was a shakeout ride, and then each day for the bigger, longer rides, there were 2 distance options that people could do.
Yeah.
So folks could, you know, do what was good enough for them. Like, you know, for some people, a 30-mile ride is long enough, and for others, they wanted to hammer 60. So it's a good chance to get in the stuff that you need for whatever goals you have later in the year.
Yeah.
Um,
It's cool to
and
have those options too, based on how you're feeling as the week goes on. Because when you ride 4 or 5 days in a row, if it's, you know, like you're starting to build your fitness for the year, most people might not be able to handle that workload yet, and they might get tired, or it's colder than normal. Like there's other things, variables there that are going to affect them. So it's kind of cool that they structured it that way, and there's enough people to kind of shift things around.
yeah, and aside from the riding, I mean, I think one of the best things about camp is just the learning experience and the fact that you're getting a bunch of information from a lot of people. So at the Unbound camp, they had all sorts of presentations. Like there was a nutrition one that Goo did. There's one all about tires. Nick, Legan, and I did one about body care. That was by Chamois Butter. So we did like all of the things that could go wrong with your body and your bike. And then Garmin was there, so they did a bunch of talks about their head units, and then at the end of that night, we wrapped up with like a mental side of racing, which is actually kind of cool. So all the different talks, you know, I had people come up to me later that were like, man, I didn't even realize I was going to get all of this and all of the knowledge. And I think that's my favorite part about camps is we are helping people not make all the same mistakes we did, essentially.
They're not mistakes. They're just we're eliminating the learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. Shortening the curve.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna make mistakes once your brain goes a little silly at mile 150, and you're just questioning life on the way in.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so anyways, I mean, the talks were great at camp. It was a really fun time. I mean, I think I just saw Anthony joined. He was the only one of the XL riders that finished the night ride on Saturday, Matt. They went out and did like an XL night ride, which was pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and 2 other guys
How long
started.
How long was that?
They rode 60. They rode 60 earlier in the day. Then they went back and they got changed up and went and rode starting at 8 p.m. They did like 115 miles or something crazy.
Yeah, what was
Really?
the temperature
Nice.
and what?
Uh, I mean, in the 30s, it was raining. It was
Yeah.
not ideal. It was not
No.
ideal.
Sounds miserable to me.
I know. But Anthony's in. He's here. He did it. I was super proud of him. But yeah, that's great training for Excel, right? I mean, that event is just all mental. So
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too with these camps and like we have somebody coming down from Oregon because the West Coast has been so wet, and it's a good chance for, like when people sign up for these events, sometimes they use them in a progression where it's like, I'm going to do the 100, then the 200, then this, and they get to kind of go out to some of these camps early. Like I would have had another athlete that I coached too coming out to kind of like test out the gear and then start to, if you choose tires and stuff to ride in these areas, like, and you're going to go back for the big event, you might as well make sure everything works if you have the means to do that, so they are kind of a cool way to go out, remind yourself like you're eating and drinking practice out there, and then how you want to ride things and test the gear that you're going to use for event day.
yeah, and can you explain the progression that we do towards taking care of yourself on Saturday?
Yeah, that's kind of the cool one where like Matt and I have talked about this with other camps that we've done that have been kind of on the road, but like with this gravel stuff more specifically, it's like what we want to do is give people the opportunity to come, and we talk about like how to be successful in gravel and then tie it to an event by day 4. So we go out and do like a pre-ride. What are you going to see towards the end of the race, and do a short ride on the first day. And then we do one big ride, and we get to talk about that evening, like the eating and drinking, like guidelines and practicing things out there on a longer route, but it still incorporates pieces of the course that they'll see on the weekend. And then we do a short ride that kind of shows them what to expect in the beginning part of the way out for the event on Friday morning, and just kind of take it easy in a group. But then that way you kind of get that last minute reminder of like what you're going to see when things are spicy and the chaos happens in the group when it is mass start. And then Saturday morning's the event. So as we kind of build through the week, we talk about how to plan for each of those aid stations. We do longer rides and make some segments that would be similar, and then continue to kind of, show you pieces of and what to expect when you're out there. Because there are things like riding in the Flint Hills is just different than other places. You don't want to get outside of that tire line in some areas because you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything there, Matt?
I got the circle of death on him.
Frozen again?
Yeah, so that's basically the plan. We can go into the next section. Oh, we heard that. Dave,
What's that?
go on to the next section.
Did you guys get into some of the... What's that?
You're breaking up for me, or I'm breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, we
didn't
got
hear
you
that
back
last.
now. We're gonna move into the eating and drinking stuff.
Yeah, I know you're like a huge stickler on it, and we always kind of preach it too with camps, but did you guys get into a lot of that, or just the good talk from the Unbound camp?
That was mostly the good
The last thing
talk.
I heard was
I think the
like
big thing with that camp
tire
and
lines.
just riding training in general was practicing everything. So that was what everybody kept reminding. It's been an hour. Make sure you're eating, drinking. It's been another hour. You should have finished 2 bottles by now. There was a lot of that talk going on from the coaches, which was good. But I think for the most part, people were doing a lot of bringing their own stuff or experimenting with new stuff. Like I know I used camp as an opportunity to try something new to test out, see if my stomach would handle it. Those are good opportunities to maybe do something a little bit different and see how you respond. But yeah, I think Goo had a bunch of stuff there that people were really enjoying, and taking on rides and practicing for Unbound in June.
Yeah.
Matt, when you do camps typically, how, as a coach, are you reminding people of eating and drinking while they're out there? Like, what are the normal recommendations that you give people?
Most conditions were, it's at least a bottle an hour. If it's warmer, then, more than a bottle an hour. And then you're trying to get people to take on somewhere between 200 and 300 calories an hour, but spread throughout the hour. So they're like grazing, obviously, instead of like, doing all 200 calories at once. They're taking on, like I have a timer that I my head unit that beeps every 10 minutes to remind me to eat and drink, especially doing like a really long event where, like Unbound, for example, you can't afford to get behind on eating or drinking at an event like that. So the timer, it beeps, everybody hears it, and like sometimes I'll just announce like drink, and everybody riding in the group will drink. So it's like a drinking game, basically. So yeah,
that's what we always kind of share too, is like these events are an eating and drinking competition as much as you're like pedaling in fitness, because if you don't have fuel in the tank, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. And specifically at camps, I mean, like hopefully you're there to just, train, right? And worry about riding and taking care of your body and all that kind of stuff. So camps are like the perfect opportunity to do some gut training, for your bigger event later in the year. And, there's still
any event.
What's that?
Or for Jonas, any event.
Yeah,
last week,
totally.
I had a couple Cokes. I paid for it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, what better opportunity, to go to, a camp and do long days and work on your gut training, Yeah. So, but the timer is a huge deal, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get in the heat of the moment, like when you're racing, and just forget to drink and eat,
or
you're negotiating. Yeah. So those are things that
Amanda, did you lose them?
I suggest to people.
Those are things. They're things. Yeah.
Set a timer alert, or make sure you're grazing.
Yeah.
Over time, over the hour, instead of like
there,
taking,
Basically, he's talking about setting a timer so you're consistently eating and drinking, over each hour.
Tires.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite.
Tires.
So I rode the Renee Hurst Hurricane Ridge 42s with the what's it called? Endurance Plus casing. The Endurance Plus casing, because it's the Flint Hills, Flint Rock, no fun for sidewall tears. And yeah, probably rode anywhere between 27 to 30 psi. I have PTSD from my flat and cracked rim at Unbound last year, so I went a little bit higher.
Did you say 35 in the rear?
No. 27 to 30.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere in between there, because I think I rode 26 at Unbound last year, and that was what pinch flatted and cracked my rim. So I was like, I'll just go practice with a little bit higher in there. So yeah, what are you guys riding next week?
I'm riding.
Freeman.
I'm riding 650B, Flint Ridges, Kenda Flint Ridge, 45s whip.
650.
Yep. Just trying something. I've been kind of going back and forth with 650Bs, just trying something different, So.
Yeah.
Of all the years out there in the Flint Hills, I haven't had a lot of flat tires. I don't remember how many exactly, maybe three,
Have you ever
but
ridden the
none of
650
them
in the
were,
Midwest?
no,
Okay,
no.
cool. That'll be
But
fun. I mean, I think it's
yeah, I mean, I think a 700C wheel is probably still better, but I have these things, so I'm just like playing around with them. They're really good here out west, like
right,
the more mountain bikey stuff.
right.
Yeah.
They
Um,
provide a
but
comfort level that's different.
yeah, yeah. I do have a little bit more difficult time getting tire pressure dialed in with 650B tires though for some, because so I've ridden 47s and they're really, I mean, that's like a mountain bike tire, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of wallow around a little bit if you don't run enough air pressure in them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still kind of messing with like what I think is optimal, really, And the 45s are better. They don't.
Yeah. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think, well, I talked to everybody at Renee Hurst, and so I think we're going to out some of the 44s because I've ran the 42 Hurricane Ridge like you out there, and we trust that Endurance Plus casing,
47s
but
did.
I've never tried the 44.
But I've never had a sidewall tear in the Flint
Mm-hmm.
Hills.
And so I think I'm going to
Knock
bring a
on
set of
wood.
the 44s and the
Only
48s because if
punctures like,
I do
right
get the chance to
in the
ride the
middle of the
XL
tread
this
pattern.
year, like that's the plan. We'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah. So you have two choices.
Yeah, and that's like what we were saying, back to that whole thing. Like, if you get the opportunity to get out there and ride, my fear is I saw some of the dirt in the videos that you were sharing where it was pretty saturated, and I'm like, am I going to clog up? Because, the Niner has the spacing, but at the same time, it's the bigger the tire, the less area you have to clear mud. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even the 42, like that section of dirt that we went through, there's a video that I posted on the Tough Ventures Instagram. It just clogged up my fork so fast, and it was that like instant reminder that if it's muddy like that, it's better to have a narrower tire. So
Yeah.
for people wondering, like that's why Dave and I always bring a mud tire and a regular not mud tire when we go to Kansas for Unbound or even Mid-South. You need that option because 42, 44, 48 is way more comfortable, but the second it's wet, you're not moving at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like last year at Unbound, you had a 42, which is really kind of blew up to like a 43, 44, and then you had a 38, which blew up to like a 40. So you had like two different options to kind of give some more spacing.
Mm-hmm.
Same wheels, but yeah, that's kind of how we did it.
Sweet. And then for gearing choices for Kansas last week, I had a 46-34 front chainring, so 2x system, and then I ran an 1140 rear cassette. So a little bit of an overkill for the climbiness. That's more of a good setup for like a rock cobbler or California riding, but that's what I had on my bike, and I think it works well for Kansas anyways because I'm not prone to keep a high cadence, and so to have the option to spin a little bit more I think is better for me. And yeah, especially for that 100-mile day, it was better to have the climbing gears.
Was there a
What are
lot
you
of
gonna
time?
run? Yeah, I mean not as much because it was mostly the day we did the 100. It was the south, so it was scoping out the south route for Unbound weekend, and because of that, there's not as much climbing as the north direction routes. But yeah, what are you thinking on gearing?
2x for life.
Yeah.
No, Freeman.
I'm running a 1x.
Oh, yeah.
He went back. He changed
I
on us.
went back. Well, I mean, I have two gravel bikes basically, and one
Yeah.
bike set up 1x, one's 2x. But I've been riding the 1x quite a bit, and that's the one I'm going to bring.
What's the gears?
So up front, same thing I rode at Strada Rosa. So up front I got a 40, and in the rear, so it's Shimano. So I think 46 is my climbing gear. So I don't know. I just it's a good all around gear setup. You know.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to run that at Unbound. Like I'd
Okay.
I wouldn't run that at Unbound, but I
Yeah.
think for this coming
Um,
week, I think it's
we've
fine.
done them 1 by and 2 by out there, and in the younger years when I could push it, like I'd run a 50-34, like a regular compact crank with a 1136 or 32 in the rear, and it was fine. Now I like a smaller gear.
I forgot the XTR rear derailleur days were 1 by setups, huh?
But yeah, we've done both with like the 1 by and 2 by. And then, but the thing is that happens out there, and like that's why I always like 2 by for the Midwest is there's not a lot of trees. So when the winds pick up on the prairie, you're kind of just like getting hammered from every direction. And with a 1 by, you shift and your cadence is 85, or you shift again and then you're at like 105, and like trying to
No,
find
in between, yeah.
is like hard sometimes, which is why I like the 2 by, and I just I like being able to have those options to not cross chain as much when I'm even at other events like climbing. But
Yeah.
I see
I
some of
think
the other stuff, like they're kind of cool. Like the stuff I saw at Arizona with a lot of the guys running the Axis stuff. Some of them I'm like, okay, that's a little overkill with like 50, 50 1 by setup, but it works.
the thing is with Unbound is I think running the 1 by, over the course of 12-hour day or longer, right, or somewhere around there, those big jumps and shifts with the 1 by, or over the course of time, it's just too much for your skeletal muscles. It just becomes like this huge, from shift to shift, it's such a big jump that's like big muscle contraction, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with the 2 by, you're the gear ratio is closer. So like when you're
Yeah, so the big shifts are gonna.
not like, you're not having this huge jump or jolt and muscles like when you change from shift to shift or gear to gear. So
Yeah.
for the longer stuff like Unbound 200, I think a 2 by for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I know a lot of people are running 1 bys, and that's
people,
like, but if you think about it from a physiological standpoint, right? Like it is, I think the 2 by is a better choice, really.
yeah, for most people, it's gonna break you down faster with the 1 by on some of those shifts. But it depends, and people will argue it to the death, and I'm not gonna argue it.
I'm curious to see how Matt likes the 1 by at Flint Hills Gravel Ride, though. I think it'll be sufficient for where the course is going, and I think, like he said, over a shorter distance, it's probably a good enough amount of gears for that amount of time.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
With me. Yeah.
Just hand it to the mechanic and tell him you'll see him in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
That was weird. When Matt was talking earlier, David, did you see how it was like he was talking but his mouth wasn't moving?
No.
I was doing what?
Yeah, you were like you was still the audio was playing, but your voice
I
wasn't moving.
don't know what's going on with my internet right now.
Yeah,
It's cutting out.
fine. It's not that great, but it's okay. We're getting by. So routes. Yes, we had routes at Unbound Camp each day. I think I mentioned it earlier, but there were two different distances for the long days. So there was like a 30 and a 60 on Friday, and then the Saturday ride had a 60 and 100 option. And then Anthony, who was on here earlier, had the 60 on that Saturday, and then at 8 p.m. at night they left for their 100-mile ride in the dark, in the cold. So those were the route options at Unbound Camp. And I thought it was kind of cool, especially because there were 60 people, that they had options. And I think with the larger group like that, you have much more varying speed. So it was cool to break it up, and then they rotated the coaches through. So for Unbound Camp, there were 20-ish coaches slash guides that were working. So yeah, they gave, what's the word, assignments for each group, and then there was a sweep in the lead, and yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Since you're like a champion out there, do you get to like choose each day? Like, Amanda, what do you want to do?
No, but I got to do the 30 on Friday, which was fun because I got to ride, a little bit slower, meet some of the people who were more intimidated about their goals, and I met this guy named Tom from San Francisco, and he had, signed up for the 100. He did like BWR San Diego last year, so he had all these questions about like, how is it different? I'm like, oh, it's so different. You're in a completely different world than BWR San Diego. And then, fast forward to the 100 the next day, that all of those people, they are maybe a little bit more experienced. They know what to expect for 100 miles. So it's a different group and a lot of different conversations, but it's really fun to just see how all of the people there progress and like tackle their goals and do all of that within the span of 3 days or 4 days or whatever it was. So that part was awesome. But yeah, I just love that. Honestly, the meeting people is the best part about the camps, in my opinion, is like having those conversations and seeing where people have come from all different walks of life and then just happen to converge on some small town in Kansas to go experience the Flint Hills. And because you and I, the three of us have been there so many times, 7, 8 times, whatever it's been now, to Emporia, it's not that we're jaded, but we've seen the Flint Hills, and so to be in a group on Saturday with a bunch of people that had never seen it before, ever, and they were like, this is amazing, like completely mind blown, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool, it's, yeah, it's about seeing those things and doing it with people that you probably otherwise would have never met in real life in your everyday things, so yeah, that is what I think gets the three of us most excited about camps in general, is having those shared experiences with people and then making them feel better about it along the way.
Yeah.
How was because a lot of things that like riding in the Flint Hills, like the climbs are so short where you're like 30 seconds to a minute. Does the Karoo 2 pick up the climbing feature?
No.
Yeah, that's what
yeah.
Because it has to be like
So
a certain amount of distance. So then
yeah, I think it's like a quarter mile that it has to be. So like Texaco Hill popped up, the Judge popped up. Those were the 2 main climbs that were like the features of the ride. So a few of them did, but definitely nothing long. So those are all the shorter ones.
Which one's the Judge? I forget. What climb is the Judge?
I mean, so people have talked about the Judge before, and I don't ever remember doing it until last year. So I don't know if you've ever done it, Matt, because people are like, oh, the Judge. And then when I was there for the first time last year, I was with Justin, and I was like, I've never done this before. So
yeah. I don't think I have done the Judge.
Yeah, I don't think you have.
it's a totally somebody asked the difference between
how does
Unbound and Mammoth Tough. It's totally different types of material. So depending on the weather, like even if it rains in the Eastern Sierra, it still rolls.
Yeah.
And your bike is never going to collect stuff and like get clogged up. It'll just shed because we have a lot of pumice and other stuff in there, which what Tough is. It's like the debris left behind from volcanoes, and that's what Mammoth Lakes is. You're up on a old volcano, and so the Midwest has a lot of clay in the soil, so when it gets wet, it's a totally different, like the mud year was just the first one Amanda got one was insane. It was like Matt and I walked probably 3-4 miles when you just rode away, and we were literally 3-4 wheels behind you, and we just watched the water peel out of the dirt in the track we were in, and then it just completely clogged our bikes when we were stuck. And so it's just different, you know, and all these events are different. Like the riding down in Mid-South, which is what, a couple hours away, they, you know, that hot Cheeto red clay dirt is, in my opinion, like the worst out of all of them, because it stains everything and you have to completely rebuild your bike when it's muddy. But that place is gnarly. But when it's dry, it's a super highway out there, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but yeah, the other part too about Mammoth that makes it different is you're starting at 8,000 feet, and then you're, depending how far you go out and back, you got to come back up to 8,000 feet. So you can go from 8,000 to 5,000 over the course of 100 miles, or 8,000 to 6 over 75-ish.
One thing I just remembered, oh no, that's not. One thing I just remembered is we had, and this is typically the case with the southbound routes, is when you come back towards Emporia, the wind is coming from the south, and so you get a tailwind finish into town. And this year that was the case, but I had messaged Bobby that night, and he was like, I'm going to ride 100 miles tomorrow, but we're going north. So as I'm like flying 20 miles per hour on the way back into town from the last checkpoint, I'm just thinking to myself, those idiots went north, which means they have this massive wind coming back to Emporia. But that made me realize that for Flint Hills Gravel Ride, that might be the case where the finish could potentially be into a headwind, but yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on the weather and see which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, we'll have to watch the windy maps to see what's happening, because especially Thursday too, because I think that we might get a little storm, and that's our long day, and so that usually means the winds are going to pick up a bit. But
yep,
it'll be fun. But any kind of, after being at camp last week and watching everybody with kind of goals and stuff, I know we keep saying, like, you know, it's good for people to do these things and come in with like a different mindset or none at all and just go have fun. But what's a tip for you? We did some of that last week too, and talking about these things with Matt and Jonas after the event. Like, what was some of the tips, or a tip that you have just as a takeaway from everything you guys did last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one for me was the mental aspect of going into this stuff. Like, what I realized was that a lot of people do get flustered. Even in a camp ride, they would go over their limit just to stay in that front group with Yuri, you know, like, oh, so exciting, I could ride with Yuri, or I could ride with Pete Stetna, and you like get in over your head and you forget that I can't hang with them and this is stupid, and it's exactly like event day. And so I think keeping in mind that if you pay attention to what your goals are and not get so flustered by everything else going on around you, I think that that's the most important thing. Not try to request from Dave to get back in, and maybe it'll let you back in. But yeah, so I think for me, that was one of the big reminders, and something I tried to tell everyone while we were out there, especially on the 100-mile day. I could tell, like, people are just going too hard. And I told one guy, this guy Clay, he's like bombing down this hill. He gets a flat. Meredith and I are helping him fix his flat. And as we finally start riding again, I was like, listen, Clay, I gotta tell you, like, you just were going too hard, and you got a flat because you were riding dumb, and you were in a group you weren't supposed to be. And he was like, you know, I really appreciate you telling me that. I'm like, yeah, because nobody else is going to. You're riding like an idiot, and that was why you flatted. If you had just kept your own pace and been more smart about it, that's the most important thing. So that can, like, setting goals and having a plan going into something for one ride and also for an event day, like how you approach training and how you approach event. Like the example that I gave during my talk at Unbound was like, Pete Stetna goes into an Unbound race weekend and his goal is, I want to win. And that's very different from everyone else. Like, nobody else is going in there. A very small percentage of folks are going in thinking that. And I think that's the big reminder of, like, that's not your goal. So don't try to hang with him and go his speed. focus on your goal, which might be finishing or might be holding a certain pace faster than last year, whatever the case may be. You know, for like Bobby Thompson, for example, I think he should always have a goal of drinking a bottle an hour because he won't. And so you just try to choose little things that are achievable. And yeah, so that was my big takeaway from Unbound Camp last week.
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm.
Sorry about that.
Big goal
That's okay.
or Wi-Fi for the week.
I don't know what's going on.
It works now.
Yeah.
We were just talking about one tip for riders next week. So I was talking about setting goals and how that's important, whether it's one ride or an event day.
Yeah.
Funny that you mentioned the going out too hard though, because we've done so many of these, or even like with CTS, we've done these tours like Tour California and some of these other big rides where day one, it's like, it doesn't matter how many times we say it, people are just jazzed and they just go out and destroy themselves.
Yeah, did you see
And
the
by like
Iowa
day 3,
gravel
they're
game
done.
comment?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you can't hang with Sagan.
it happens when you're racing too, you know?
Yeah,
It's like,
for sure.
I'm always going to try to stay in the front group. I don't know if I have that same motivation now, but yeah, it's like I'm going to go ride in the group as long as I can have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. So what, after all the storytelling, what are you looking forward to on teaching next week?
Like my big thing is always like, I mean, with the Flint Hill, there's probably 2 things, and it's like Midwest gravel and with Mammoth Tough. Like for people that want to go to these from the West Coast back out there to experience these events, it's like, how do you dissect a course to get to like each segment or each aid station? Because you have to be able to look at that profile, understand how you're riding, and using these camps to say like, well, what was our pace yesterday? What's our pace today? This is where we're going to stop for things. How let's look at and review those things later, and then we get to talk about them as a group, and then people start to understand like, yeah, I should probably have this much on me to survive that distance. Oh, and we got a flat and it took us 20 minutes to change it because I had a sidewall tear. And so it's like, yeah, like, do you have the right things in the bag to fix those flats and things that do pop up in places like this? And then having all of those items, nutrition and hydration wise, to kind of get there. Because, you know, I can share in this area for sure my experiences with like, I've had so many sidewall tears out there from, you know, riding like the experience that you just saw at camp. I had that during the XL where I was going way too fast and blew a sidewall, and then it's a 20-minute fix, and then bad tubes. We won't name brands, but then I'm on the side of the road for another 40 minutes until I can borrow some from people to then have Matt pick me up at 2:30 in the morning from the next spot because there's no place along the route, you know, and there's no way to get extracted. So you're just kind of crossing your fingers, but I had enough nutrition and hydration with me. And even with that, I would say I was probably dehydrated. And I stopped at a farm who had a cooler out front and took a bottle. And that was, yeah, that could have been real bad if it would have been longer. So you kind of have to be prepared. And Coach didn't practice what he preached on that one. So it's always like, you know, like that's the stuff I don't want people to have because it can get dangerous too, because we've been to the hospital before.
So in the tire talk that Pete and IRC did, they were asking everybody in the room like, oh, who runs tubeless and who runs tubed? And there were 2 people that run tubed. One of them is like regular tubes, and the other guy was the Tubo Light tires. And he had a very good reason. He was like, I don't want to get messy and do the orange seal or stands all over my hands and fix a flat. So he was just committed to like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to mess with the valve core remover or any of that stuff. So this is how I want to do it. And like to him, the benefit of tubeless wasn't worth the hassle of being messy and changing all of that stuff if it did. if it did flat. So I thought that was funny, and I was, thanks. We'll see you at Flint Hills Gravel. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I want to tell you that story because that guy was like so adamant. He's like, two light tires because I don't want to change stuff. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
They better be the right size. Don't try to stretch those outside of their limit.
Yeah, that too.
They won't last.
Yeah. Well, we lost Matt, but he is still here watching. So if you joined us earlier, thanks for joining us. Matt Freeman is coming out with us to be a coach next week at our TUFF Camp in Kansas with the Flint Hills Gravel Ride. I met a lot of people at Unbound Camp this past week, and a bunch of people were like, oh, I didn't know this Flint Hills Gravel Ride thing is happening, and so I'll see you next weekend. And a bunch of people decided to come. So it's going to be fun. Do a little nice grassroots event out in Americus, Kansas, and we will be there. If you're going to be there early, give us a shout. We're riding camps and excited to meet everyone that's going to be there. Freeman said someone should make drinkable tire sealant. That's disgusting. You can drink it. Try. See how the latex does in your stomach.
I don't know about that. It's ruined 2 sets of gloves.
Yeah, that's true. That was one of his reasons too. Was the
I mean, I was laughing when you said it because I'm like, yeah, every time because I run extra sealant, especially out there, so it gets everywhere. And then when you take the tire off, I just automatically agree to myself that I'm going to ruin whatever gloves I'm in and then pull a set of short fingers out of my back pocket. And I always plan that way because if I've done it 7 times, I've had 5 sidewall tears and 1 complete blowout. So there's only once I didn't flat.
Yeah. So for Rick's Life 86, yeah, Unbound Gravel does their official training camps, and then our camps, we're doing 2 TUFF camps in Kansas this year. One of them is next week with Flint Hills Gravel Ride, and then the next one is in July. So we're going to do another one this summer with the Rock Ridge Gravel Ride. And then for Iowa Gravel Gang, Bobby has his routes up already. So all the routes are up in the rider guide, and you can check them out. The challenge ride is 85 miles. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. I don't know.
Yeah, the other one's like 120, 125 for the longer one. But that one, people should know or read that it's not. There's no navigation. It's old school style, and you get your cue cards the morning of, and then you get your next set of cue cards for each aid station or gas station that you arrive to, because there are no real. It's like XL where you're completely on your own except for some people at a table or the people working at the gas stations that are going to hand you your next set. So it's kind of like an adventure a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to talk about everything from camp and how everybody's experiences went. Maybe Freeman's internet will work and he can talk about not winning on his 650s and his one bicep.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if anybody's coming to Flint Hills Gravel Ride, for those people watching right now who are coming to camp, we look forward to seeing you next week. And then hi, Rhonda. And then for everybody that's coming just to do Flint Hills Gravel Ride, we will see you there. So look out for us. Say hello if you see us. And we look forward to meeting you. Oh, and if you live in Kansas, I'm going to be at the Sunflower Bike Shop in Lawrence on Monday night. They just posted about it. I'm going to go out there on Monday night and do a little short recovery ride for a Monday and do a talk. So if you're in the area, you're anywhere near Lawrence and want to come say hi to me, come out and do that. It's free. Just say hello.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. That was TUFF Talk number 5. We'll see you after we get back from Kansas next time.
Over and out.
See
Bye.
ya.